Hey guys, don't forget to go and like this video and to subscribe to my channel as well to help with all the algorithm stuff and yeah, just really support the channel. Thank you guys so much. I want to be talking about one of the most highly viewed videos on my channel and how it came to be. Considering this channel is all about self-help, you'd expect it to be about self-help, but it actually wasn't. It's a video that I've taken down since then for a variety of reasons, but it had something to do with a company called Trade. Their business was all about trading Ethereum, a Bitcoin equivalent, along with other cryptocurrencies. Since moving back home to my parents, I wanted to delve back into video making, and while I was posting other content at the time, none of it got the same attention as this video did, and for good reason. The other videos I posted weren't that great, personally speaking. Meanwhile, this video was a review of the company with me concluding that this was a scam, and a pretty obvious one. While I was familiar with crypto's volatility in value, there were several other indicators that this investment firm wasn't doing everything by the book. I'll get into a few more details in a future video, but the biggest thing that stands out to me was the comments section of that video. There, I was talking to a few crypto bros where they defended their precious company they poured thousands into while I defended that this was a scam. The argument itself is not important right now, but in the end, their messaging implied one simple thing. They thought I was a loser. One way or another, we've made mistakes, blunders, gaffes, and made fools of ourselves. I had to deal with being torched by a bunch of crypto bros who knew more about crypto than me years ago. Meanwhile, said crypto bros were so high on Kool-Aid, they wanted to defend their bad investment decisions. But often in those situations, in the wake of those bad things happening, there has been a general consensus in what one does to handle mistakes. In the self-help world, I often think of those sort of cheesy inspirational stuff about failure. How we haven't truly failed unless we fail to learn the lesson that was in the mistake that we made or the failure that we made. That sort of thing is pushed hard by so many gurus, and I can completely understand why. Losing sucks, and we don't really want to end up like even bigger losers in our lives.
Loser! You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself?
But as I've come to learn about the self-help industry, the more I learn, it's better for us to have alternatives. While thinking about failure as learning opportunities can help, it doesn't always allow us to process the loss truly. It invalidates your emotions and gets you to think of mistakes or problems as obstacles to overcome and crush. When those crypto bros learned about the site folding and their money is gone, the self-help world would nudge these individuals to take the loss on the chin and hustle to build up their wealth some other way. At least in theory. I don't know what those individuals in particular did after that. And in that sense, getting back to the grind and hustling to recover what was lost feels like a silent acknowledgement of that mistake, but not really processing it. And so today, I want to talk about how we can become better losers. Not just accepting the loss and learning from it, but a method that can make coping easier. Filtering our thoughts so we're thinking straight, and being more capable of turning our situation around and being better people. So, what is the first step in being a better loser? Well, it sounds counterintuitive, but the first step is to lean into your mistake. As crazy as it sounds, I'm not asking you to make even more blunders, but rather to build up an exit strategy.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
The context will vary depending on the situation, since some mistakes are small and insignificant, while others are more serious and larger. The intended goal isn't to double down or firmly stand your ground on your original thoughts, but rather try to go out in a blaze of glory while making the most of the situation you find yourself in. Broadly speaking, when we make mistakes, we act irrationally. We get angry, frustrated, and in some cases, some of us will throw objects or do weird things with objects. We effectively do something that causes more harm to ourselves than what an initial failure or mistake would cause. If you're someone that throws stuff around when you're angry, you'll have to buy another one of said things that you destroyed or broke. If we're angry at a person, you may end up burning that bridge with no chance of recovery.
Friendship over.
Friendship over!
By leaning into a mistake, we have the means of mitigating some of that, and oftentimes it comes down by acting in the opposite way of what others would expect from you. For me personally, I've learned to look at those situations and laugh at them in that moment. I try to be humorous about it. The last thing that is on my mind is, how can I do better for next time? That is key, because as far as this step is concerned, you're not focusing on becoming better right now. You're in damage control mode. And with your emotions being so volatile, it's important to find more positive emotions in this instance. This isn't meant to deny or downplay a mistake, but rather give yourself a quick pick-me-up in that moment. Once you're done with all of that, the second step is to check your self-compassion. As so many other failure articles and videos would point out, we are our worst critics.
Why do I always shout first? Just gives them a chance to run away. Well, I'm an idiot.
As we will point out to ourselves the various failures and mistakes that we make whenever we have certain decisions. In situations where we take those mistakes and turn them into what we can do better, it still doesn't change the fact that we're placing blame on ourselves for something that we did. A good example is, again, this very channel I am running. I have made several attempts to get back into recording videos. I get on my case about how I'm passionate about making videos and how for years I have been putting it off. One of the big deterrents was the fact I brought this up as a means of harming myself. These days, I bring this up from time to time because it's a learning lesson for me that I can pass along to other people. You see, we often look at these criticisms of ourselves, and traditional self-help practices encourage us to look at these flaws that we can fix. If you're truly passionate about something, you'll find a way to get it done, and that sort of thing. But I find that way of thinking to not be helpful all of the time. Again, with my YouTube channel, it was that thinking that paralyzed me for years in creating content and doing so consistently. What got me out of that was telling myself specific steps that I can follow and draw inspiration from other creators. It was having a strategy in place and figuring out what kind of content I would have and what I would be talking about, and setting all of that up weeks before I even hit the record button. And one thing that really helped was checking my self-compassion towards myself. The idea isn't to coddle yourself and shield yourself from self-criticism, nor is finding the exit strategy in the first step that I mentioned. Rather, these two steps are designed to give you breathing room before you are being critical of yourself and tackling the problem that is right in front of you.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
There's a big difference between sitting with those emotions, processing them, and giving yourself love and trust. You'll do better next time, and telling yourself to suck it up and put on your big boy or girl pants and fix the issue right now. The reason you want to do those steps is because it naturally flows into this third step, focusing on your concrete thoughts. The idea of adapting right then and there and learning from your mistakes falls flat is because of what this step addresses. Whether the mistake is big or small, we have mental chatter that these create for us. Some of it is those criticisms that I have just mentioned, but there is all kinds of other noise that comes along with it too. Noise that can be too much for us and get us to focus on the wrong thing and can result in us making a lapse in judgment. When we make mistakes or end up a loser, there are so many thoughts and emotions that we experience during that time. The degree and for how long vary depending on the situation, but they are just enough to make us sway, focus on the wrong thing, and ultimately not think straight.
You're a phony! Hey, this guy's a great big phony!
This is why being critical at this point doesn't help. If you're not thinking straight, how can you be critical of yourself when the act requires you to think clearly and in a straight manner? You can't. So this step serves as an anchor, as it's an opportunity for us to filter our thoughts. How you can do that is to focus on the most tangible thoughts that you're having. This means filtering out personal slights, discouraging thoughts, or anything to do with the past. Specifically, you can focus on one of these three focused strategies. The first is present focused. You recognize the mistake or loss that has happened in the past, and you stick with your original plan and do what you can to move that along. The second is task focused. Basically, it's the exact same thing as present focused. However, you care more about the specific tasks that you have in front of you. If the problem is significant, then you think about a task that you can do in order to solve that issue. If you can't, then you stick with your original plan and you try again. The third one is process focus, where it's a mishmash of the other two focused strategies. However, you're focusing more on the overall routine and process rather than those specific steps. These strategies get you to act as though the mistake never happened and that everything is still going according to plan.
We're simply a part of my plan.
This doesn't mean you're burying your mistake or denying your emotions, but rather to stick to something that is more real and tangible for the time being. Up to this point, the steps are getting you to be mentally prepared for the eventual self-reflection of your mistakes. This brings me to my final step, which is to figure out what went right. Normally, whenever we experience failures or mistakes, we reflect on those mistakes or losses or failures, and we focus on those immediately. Again, I get it because self-help gurus and so many other people encourage this way of thinking.
Say, Opie, I'll trade you this baseball for your souvenir bat.
Sure.
What did you learn?
But as I've been pointing out time and time again throughout this entire video, the immediate reflection on past mistakes often doesn't help us. It can hinder us in so many ways as we get distracted by areas to improve on rather than genuinely growing as human beings. What does actually improve our lives is the exact opposite, focusing on what went right. It's so counterintuitive on the surface as we've been conditioned for decades to reflect on mistakes as they unfold. When we do poorly on a test, our instinct is to mull over the corrections that our teacher has made on our test itself and to learn from those mistakes. But thinking about what went right about something can result in us being more constructive and actually growing as individuals. The reason is that we become less reactionary to things around us and begin to be proactive in our lives. Instead of putting time and energy into questioning our motivation, skills, and our abilities and willingness to try new things, we focus on things we know absolutely about the scenario. We focus on the things that went well and look at our attitude leading up to it as well. For example, I probably would have been a better student if I realized earlier that studying for tests and exams would have made me better prepared rather than spending all the time playing video games or hanging out with friends. I could have been better in school had I been instilled with the excitement of learning as I have now. But the problem was I didn't. Instead, I looked at my test scores and was content with those achievements. I didn't get the point of studying and didn't bother doing any. What this final step actually does is uncovers more of our potential. Yes, those are faults that we have to address, but we can also focus on things that went right, and we can repeat those time and again. Even if you fail to send a report on time, you may have learned you were able to focus better if you listened to some music. You could take that fact and spin it into carving out a few hours where you're doing deep and undisturbed work every day to ensure that you stay on top of all of your various tasks and duties. Things like that don't always come out of focusing on the failure and what you can learn from that mistake.
Me a bet.
Sure.
What did you learn?
I totally understand the compulsion to fix things in our lives. We all make mistakes, and we all have things that we want to solve and address and improve upon. And we also don't want to be called losers or look like we're losers. Self-help reminds us about that, and so does getting through every single day. But what this strategy does is encourages us to take a break from all of that nonsense, to move away from trying to fix problems you're having and spend some time genuinely reflecting and figuring out how we can be better. It's okay to be a loser or fail, as many self-help gurus have implied. But to be a better loser, we've got to take more time for ourselves. And that begins by recognizing it's okay to be one and that we become less of one when we formulate strategies that genuinely help us rather than constantly remind us that we're a bunch of losers and failures. And that is all that I want to be talking about for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching the entirety of this video. Don't forget to go and leave a like on this video if you have enjoyed it, and to consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so already. On top of that, I also want to remind you that I have a Patreon page, and I am doing some regular posting on there. And I do actually have a specific perk on there where you get early access to these videos. So far, it's only 1 day early access, but still, hey, it's great. Come in and at the very least follow me on there, and yeah, that will definitely help things out. Thank you guys so much.